Hey guys, it's Simmersat. Way before I bought my keyboard, I came across a hobby known by keyboard enthusiasts called keyboard modding. Keyboard modding is the process of modifying the keyboard and to alter the feel and sound of the keyboard to make it better than its factory stock original state. Keyboard modding can be a cheap way but sometimes expensive way to have a better keyboard experience. The most popular keyboard mods are switch lubing, stab lubing, and case foam, all of which are great ways to significantly alter the feel and sound of your keyboard. There's also custom keyboards where people build their own keyboard just like building a PC. It is a way to have more freedom to pick parts that you like and build a keyboard to tutor your preferences. You have a sense of pride when you build a keyboard as you have a completely different experience than what the majority of people have. The keyboard I will be modding today is the EpoMaker Skylong SK61. I have made a review video on the keyboard, so check it out if you want to know more about this keyboard. This keyboard is around $60 to $70, which for this price has a lot of value for its money. The mods I will be applying are Switch Lube, Stabilizer Lube, Band-Aid mod, the Holy mod which I'll go over later, and then the case foam. I will be explaining what each of these mods do along the way while I'm modding. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to be taking apart this keyboard completely in order to apply all the mods I plan to put on. First, I take off the keycaps. This was pretty much the easiest part of the disassembly, and it doesn't really take long for me to take out all the keys. Now once I take off all the keycaps, it's time to take off the switches. This part was quite hard and took me so long. This is my first time tearing apart a keyboard, so taking off the switches first time were hard. I tried to pull out the switch like I would pull out a key, and it wouldn't even budge. I literally had to watch a video on YouTube on how to pull them out. After watching the video, I found out there were small little tabs that you had to push in with the puller, then with quite some force you pulled it out. I was able to pull some of these switches out with no problems, but some switches were just so tight in, even with the hardest amount of force, it wouldn't budge. I left them for now to pull out the rest of the switches. After all the switches were done being pulled out, it's time to pull out the rest of the tight switches. After a while, all of the switches were completely out, and I'm ready to move the plate and the PCB to install the case foam. Now, it's time to install the case foam. What this case foam does is improve the acoustics and add a bit more weight into the keyboard. This will reduce pinging sounds, which are metallic ping sounds when you are typing. It will also add a deeper sound when you are typing. The weight addition will reduce sliding from the keyboard. When I install the case foam, I make sure I cut it to size to ensure it properly fits into the case. After that's done, I put the foam in the case and cut holes for the screw holes so that the screws can be secured in properly. This mod was one of the easiest to install, and it doesn't take much. Next, I'm going to lube the stabilizers to significantly reduce the rattle that it has. My keyboard already came with pre-applied lube, but when I tested them, they still felt quite rattly despite them. What I did was remove the lube from all the stabs first, and then after all that, I added my own lube, which is Krytox 205 grade 0, which is the best lube to use when you're lubing your switches and your stabs. You can also use dielectric grease though, but I highly recommend Krytox as it's more thicker, and which means it would reduce rattling way more than dielectric. When I install my lube for the stabs, I first get a bit of lube and brush the walls inside of the housing to ensure a smoother actuation. After that, I put a large amount of lube on the stab bar legs and a bit on the side of it to cover it into a shape of an R. After that's done, I apply the leg back into the stab and I squeeze a bit of lube on top here and on the bottom, ensuring to reduce as much rattle as I can. I do the same method on the other sides as well. Once that is all done, now it's time to move on to the most time-consuming part, lubing the actual switches themselves. This process took me the entire night to do, as I had to lube around 60 switches. Each switch took me around 2 to 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes per switch. It honestly depends on the person though, because some people might have those base stations where they put the switch components into them and it lets them lube their switches even faster. But me, I do not have one of those, so this took me a bit longer than what they have. So it honestly depends on the person. But all I know is that it took the entire night to lube all 60 switches. So first, I would open up all the switches and separate the pieces into 3 plates and the springs into a small container. After taking out all the switches, I dab a good amount of lube on the side, close it, and shake the container like there's no tomorrow. This ensures that an even amount of lube is applied on all the switches in a short amount of time.
Okay.
After that process is done, I can now start the long process of lubing every single switch. How I would lube a switch is first put a bit of lube on the sides of the stem. Next, I lube the feet of the stem, and finally the bottom part, lube the part here. And then dab a little bit of lube here. After that's done, I put the spring back in its place and then the stem. After that, I get the housing and I click it into place. Repeat this 59 more times and then you've got a completely lubed keyboard. All of that modding took me hours to do, and the final way to find out was if it was all worth it. The pièce de la résistance, the sound test.
Are you deaf as you are thick? Yamada invoked the killer's friggin' name as he drew his final breath. Why must you make it so difficult?
Wow, how much of a difference that made. We went from a rattly, sort of high-pitched experience to a more deeper sounding and better feeling switch. This has been a great experience for me, and it gave me this opportunity to learn about modding a keyboard as a newcomer to these type of things. This experience has now gave me the ability to know how it feels to mod a switch, and if I want to build my own keyboard in the future, I know how it feels like to do something like this. Well, in some or most instances, if you're gonna build a keyboard, you're probably gonna have to do some soldering, which is tedious at first and may seem hard in the first time, but you can get hot swaps keyboards, which is also a choice. Overall, this has been quite an interesting experience for me going into keyboard modding. And everyone that is interested in this, I highly recommend this, as it's not that hard to do, and in the end, you feel proud for what you did. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. I do make more tech-related videos like my unboxing videos, so please check them out if you want to watch more tech videos on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to support me, and it really encourages me to keep on making these videos. Turn on notifications to be first on the latest content, and if you really want to support me, I do have my Patreon, which you can subscribe to. It really helps me being able to afford unboxing and review videos. And finally, follow my Twitter to stay up to date on what I'm doing. Anyways guys, this is Immersat, and good night.